And we haven't received the April minutes yet.
That's right. We've got February and March before you.
Okay.
Good evening. You're now viewing the Scottsville Architectural Review Board meeting for Thursday, May 5th, 2022. My name is Matt Lawless. I serve as Scottsville Town Administrator. This meeting is being held at Scottsville's Town Hall, Victory Hall, 401 Valley Street in Scottsville. The meeting is open to the public pursuant to Virginia's open meeting laws and the Freedom of Information Act. We also have opportunities to participate and view the meeting remotely, online on our Zoom channel, or by calling in on the phone. We also have this recording available on our YouTube channel. If you're tuning in the future, thank you. The local time here now is 7 minutes until 7 o'clock, the posted time of our meeting. We're still getting our quorum together and setting up our room. So I'll mute this camera and mic and convene at 7 o'clock. If you want to skip ahead 6 minutes on your YouTube stream, you'll see the meeting come to order. Thank you.
Ask for a motion to approve the agenda.
Second that?
All in favor? Aye. Right. Minutes from March 3rd and February 4th. We are in May. All right, so I think these are good to go. I thought there was something missing, but that's because we have it in April and these minutes are before that. I'm good with the minutes here. I need a motion to approve them.
I move to approve the February and March minutes.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so we'll open up matters from the public. If you are here from the public and wish to address the ARB, this is your time to do so. Hearing no matters from the public. Move on.
Can I ask one thing, and that's really,
Yeah, this is the time.
in all of the approvals in the process of whether it be ARB or any changes that are going on downtown. I know it's more planning commission than here, but everybody needs to be aware of the parking situation.
Yes.
And or in the designs of things such as up here at the new Airbnb, the possibility of losing 6 parking places behind the buildings or 8, depends on how it gets done. That's huge.
Mhm.
And then the rules of the state of Virginia that really owns that highway. For example, when we have that snowstorms, you're supposed to get all the vehicles off the street so they can plow it properly. Where in the world are these people gonna go? So just please keep the parking situation in mind when approving and thinking about these different things going on.
Mhm.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, moving on to old business. The only old business before us tonight is Tiger Fuels Market, and we have their revised plans. Are there representatives from Tiger Fuels on the call today?
Yes, Mr. Rivera is on the phone.
So I think, so what I'd like to do to get into this, I'm just gonna review what our action items were from last time, and then we can just take them in order from there. And I think we've kind of discussed this a bunch already with Tiger Fuel, we've got their plan, so I think rather than having Tiger Fuel walk us through the stuff, I'll just open it up to ARB comment and discussion on the revised plans if they are. Of course, we can ask Tiger Fuel questions as we go, but we'll take, I think, each action item in turn because they sort of have different questions associated with them. So the first one is we asked for a revised landscaping plan. So I'd like to take that first and wrap up the landscaping around the site. The second is the signage at the corner of Route 6 and 20 related to size, brick base, exterior lighting, and some type of Scottsville logo for recognition. The third was lighting on the parking lot, particularly related to shielded parking lot lights. Let's see, we removed concerns about the main building as well as the car wash being outside of the entrance corridor. So the fourth item then is the dumpster enclosure, which we have images of, so rendering that, and that's it. Those are the 4 things. So I'll open it up for discussion related to the landscaping plan first. Comments about that, and any questions that we have for Tiger Fuel.
So I was reading the code, and I believe it says that if the part of the parcel is in the entrance corridor, the whole parcel is in the entrance corridor. So I'm not sure that the car wash is, unless it's on a separate piece of property. I believe it is included in the entrance corridor. Just for information's sake.
Well, that's good to know, because last time I got the impression that distance from the corridor was the indicator, not just being.
Yeah, it said 100 feet. Yeah, but I can find it for you. It does say if the part of the property is in the corridor, the whole property is in the corridor.
Okay, So then we may return to the car wash.
maybe, yeah,
Okay.
okay.
Can I ask, because I wasn't here at April's meeting, and I don't, there are no minutes for it. Can I ask for a synopsis of what the landscape conversation was?
Yes, as much as I can remember it. We asked for screening, so bushes that would be good for screening along 20. I think that was a primary concern. We discussed the trees that were going to stay. And so we reviewed your work largely. And then we did raise the issue about trees to be preserved around the corner there. So you mentioned it might be impacted by VDOT one way or another. And Tiger Fuel said that they would try to do what they could to preserve it, barring VDOT requirements.
And the tree screening along the residential property, we wanted to make it more varied. I think that was one of your points.
Yes.
We talked about
Yeah, so I want to make sure that as we review the landscaping plan currently, just that we're comfortable with the location of the sign, we're comfortable with the plantings that'll be there, and which means tree types and tree size, and its relationship to the signage on the corner. So with that, I'll reopen the discussion.
Okay. And then from Tiger Fuel, could I just have some clarity about the notes on the landscape plan, the red lines on the landscape plan, specifically what's marked as a change cloud, where the tree protection, where it says tree protection fence shown. I'm not sure what that means.
Yeah, hey, everybody. This is Aaron. I believe that markup that Chimp included was just to help you track changes.
Oh, I see. Okay, so
Yep.
just marking that was a change. So tree protection. fence,
Correct.
What is tree?
So is the tree protection fence going to be there? Is that just there? Is there like saplings and as they're growing, or is that what it's there for? Just that's what I assumed, protecting the trees while they grew.
But it's only around one tree.
It's around, it's a circle with a dotted line, so it also looks like a tree. So
Oh,
see, that's a proposed that's a proposed fence around that little tree.
I got it.
Are those temporary measures during construction to make sure they don't get demolished?
Correct. So it's either to help make sure everybody can see it and protect it, and as well, sometimes larger trees also you put a little wrap around them to also make sure any accidents are also don't have an injury. So that's what that's for: tree protection during work, for awareness as well as just straight up protection. Yep.
Great, that's helpful. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Because an excavator going near one
Right.
could damage the roots too.
Aaron, can we talk about that? A lot of cities, I guess, are more detailed about how to preserve trees, or not only just the fence, but there's pruning that goes on, and feeding and mulching, and maybe putting chips down, so when an excavator does go there, it's not compacting the soil. I haven't really had a look at whether those kinds of things are worthwhile there, but I'd like to bring that up for discussion. So I don't think that some of those trees are big and could use more than just the fence, because their roots have probably gone beyond their canopy. Yeah. And I have a question about the retaining wall. And what material that is, and whether it should be at the top or the bottom of the grading, because retaining walls also are root invasive, potentially.
You're speaking about the retaining wall where it's noted incorporated 2-foot retaining wall to reduce
Yeah,
limits of disturbance.
yeah. So I don't know if it's good to start the hill at the bottom and then have the retaining wall at the top, and then we can screen it out with shrubs maybe that way, or. And Aaron, you might have some input too about the sequence of how that's going to happen. Because a lot of times I've seen where they grade the slope and then they come back in and cut out the retaining wall. And I don't see how that's going to happen with those red buds there. So maybe if the wall top. Okay.
So I'm trying to understand what the question is here. There was a few different things, so can you help me?
Okay. One, what is the material of the retaining wall? Is it brick or railroad ties? I couldn't find a specification. And then the second question is the location and the slope. Should it be at the bottom of the slope or at the top? And
I'd have to look at the cross section there on that. I believe it. So I don't know that right off the hand, but it should be on the site plans there. And the material I think is a CMU, some kind of block that is simple and easy to put in that would jive in easily with footers, and it's not really tall, so then it will kind of blend in with the landscaping. In terms of protecting the trees, and you mentioned canopy a minute ago before, that was again part of our original concern with some of these trees, is that the canopy on some of the mature trees is quite large, and we will do our very best to minimize any root disturbance on those, and that's why we called out the tree protection as best we could with those. In terms of those red buds there, I think they're going to be pretty hardy, and they're outside. They're below the retaining wall there, if I'm remembering that correctly. I don't have that pulled up right in front of me as I'm talking, but yeah.
I think that's correct.
They are.
They're below.
Yeah.
So sorry if I'm repeating questions or conversations that were talked about last month. I feel like there are a few more trees that we talked about on site that Gordon and Kelsey, right? Yes, Kelsey and Matt and I talked about on site that aren't included in the site plan. Can you tell me why that might be? Especially, let's see, if this is the ones I'm thinking about are between the change cloud and the red buds.
I can't speak to that directly, as I wasn't there on site, but I do know that Kelsey put the plan together based on her field notes. If there's an error in this based on what you're saying, then I'm going to have to go back to Kelsey on that. But my understanding is it's reflected the field notes that she and Gordon agreed to with y'all in person.
Okay, so I think what I would like to do is take this to the site and just confirm based on what trees we tied off, if that's okay.
What's the
Can you say it again?
Oh, did you not hear me, Aaron?
No, I'm sorry. It was a little warbly.
Okay, sorry. I would like to take this plan to the site and just confirm that the trees that we tied off as a group are included in the plan. And if they're not, I would assume it's because of grading, and I will take that into consideration. I just want to confirm that everything we discussed on site is included. If there isn't another concern. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that sounds good to me. I guess my immediate question is, just being the pragmatist, is I'm not sure how that relates to processes and stuff here.
Like in terms of approving the site plan, are you asking?
Yeah.
Um,
How that kind of feeds in, assuming that hopefully other things are good. I'm just not sure how that feeds into yet another meeting, or how that goes. So I'm looking to y'all for guidance.
it's sort of be up to the board here. If the board feels like we have enough information and we're willing to green light it pending said review, we can approve it tonight. If the board feels like we want to really look at it and not approve anything until we're sure, we can also do that. So we'll discuss that.
Okay, understood. Yep. So, but for sure, feel free to please go out there and double check whatever helps give you the confidence that we're trying to follow everything we agreed to in the field. So.
Okay, thank you, Aaron.
The drawing's not clear to me.
Absolutely.
What's the symbol for a preserved tree here?
It's the X with the dash, it's
This one?
That's the fence.
yeah,
So anything with an X on it is
Yes.
preservation?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
It's the little cloud inside that circle. That's the tree. Yeah, that's the tree symbol. And then they're labeled like there's a 26-inch maple, which is not protected. I don't. But I think it was tagged when I drove past today.
yeah.
I see.
Do you want to be involved with the construction here? Like approve it with your pending your on-site approval during construction or something like that?
I don't know, is that within our purview?
I don't think so.
All right.
I mean, that's sort of Matt's job. Matt is, I don't know if that's a zoning administrator or town administrator, checks in on COAs as the work is ongoing.
Okay.
So once we check off what it needs to look like, Matt will do site visits to then say, are we doing the things?
I'll do, and Aaron, I would love to take one more walk with you before groundbreaking to put my eyes on these trees again, so I know which ones we're talking about.
Okay,
And
well,
I can do construction monitoring, yeah.
okay, great. As far as what you were suggesting, applying proactive strategies to keep those trees healthy. Is that part of our purview to suggest or recommend that?
I think we can make recommendations. Yeah. I think we can do that.
And so what's the penalty? It says, that if they lose a tree, then they have to replace it in kind.
Ooh,
And they
that'd be hard.
also require 3.5-inch caliper trees in the entrance corridors, and they're specified as 1.5 inches. So
Oh, we specify,
the county says in entrance corridor, it has to be 3.5 inch, any new material. And the submittal says 1.5 inch caliper.
County regulations might be stronger than ours.
Pardon me?
County regulations might be stronger than ours.
and they don't apply to us?
We were told that they would do higher caliber tree plantings here than was originally submitted. I don't know where to read the caliper on the,
It's in the chart in the top right hand corner.
I see that, but I don't know which is there's the minimum, there's the height.
Yeah, minimal
Minimum
caliper and
height.
height.
Oh, I see.
That's the column.
For the,
No, I see. Okay, yeah. So these like for example, the evergreen shrubs that are going in then.
Foot tall.
So they're going in at
1 foot tall,
1 foot tall.
and the thickness is relevant for those trees.
Right.
For the redwoods and dogwoods, the height is what matters.
Mhm.
The only thing the caliper measurement is the open hornbeam.
Well, it's gonna get really hard to get a 3.5 inch caliper horn. poplar.
Yeah.
But the willow oak. Yeah. And it may be we can give them a variance and just have the big trees in the corner between the entrance to the property and the corner or some, where they would have the most impact. And maybe cut them a variance for the 1.5 inches going west.
I know some of y'all are landscape designers, if not all of you. In my personal experience with the many trees I've planted, trees are like children, and the younger ones are more resilient and adaptive than us older folks. So I find that after 2 or 3 years, the smaller caliper and the bigger caliper all end up being at the same spot. You're just not going to get the growth as quickly, even with the bigger one type. But we will install whatever size that you guys want. But when I'm planting a lot of trees, I'm going with the smaller because they just are more resilient and adaptive, and end up growing faster and catching up quicker than the ones that stand there and wait until they get acclimated quicker. But y'all's experience could be different.
I'm just saying.
But if we need to adjust some of them to say 3.5 inch, if that's not on there, we didn't catch that on the table. And sorry if we didn't all get that on previous notes. We can, whatever y'all are requesting.
Yeah, and that just refers to the deciduous trees. And that was a recommendation that came from Kelsey, I think, so I'm comfortable holding the line on that with 3.5 inches, obviously.
Okay, yeah.
That sounds good to me, since that's what Kelsey had also suggested, so I feel good doing that. Are the calipers this is for the board, are the calipers on the other trees suitable?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well.
Yeah, it's really just, so they're speaking about height as opposed to caliper.
I think that granite floor is a little small. 6 to 8. But they are hard to transplant.
Yeah, Aaron, can I ask you, have you put azaleas on other sites that will be getting as much sun, and are they successful? Because I'm hesitant, this is something I brought up with Kelsey, I hesitate about that because I know that azaleas prefer shade. But I'd like to hear about your experience if you have any on other sites.
I'm with you. It's a mixed bag. So if y'all are worried and it's a different species, and I remember this came up last time, if we need to change it out, let's change it out to something that you're more comfortable with.
Okay.
They could do fantastic, or they could not. I mean, it all depends. Yeah. Sometimes it's a soil thing as much as it is the sun. So.
Do you have a recommendation for what might be better there, or something within this palette of plantings that we could fill in with instead?
I mean, I think I would have said oak leaf hydrangea, and they already have oak leaf hydrangeas. I have to say that I think they've covered the gamut on evergreen hardy shrubs. And so I appreciate that the palette is so varied. And I think the rest will do fine. I guess I worry a little bit about the rhododendron. I think it will do fine.
Well, my question is, if we remove the azaleas, we still
Right,
need
do
to
you
plant
wanna
something there.
replace it.
So do you have a sense that we could use something here as a replacement instead of the azaleas?
Yeah, well, let me see where they're planted.
Yeah.
Oh, are they in the medians around the car wash?
Yeah, that's what it looked like to me.
That's what it looks like. So, okay,
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, they're just sort of, they're not on the lot, they're not medians, the way I understand the median.
Not these ones.
Yeah, they're
All
on,
those right there.
but they're also on 20. So they're the major planting along 20. That whole row there is azaleas. So we don't, is there another planting to suit that purpose, which is effectively
Right.
the most substantial screen between that site and the residents across the street?
yeah. No. What about a southern wax myrtle? Do you all know about southern wax myrtles? They're a bit, this may not be the aesthetic that they're going for. They can be a bit wild looking, but they can also be managed pretty easily from what I've experienced. They are evergreen, they smell great.
Yeah, there they are.
Aaron, we're looking at pictures if you
Yeah.
can see our screen share.
Aaron, do you know about southern wax myrtle?
Yeah, and if that, I mean, it's certainly, I think it's certainly a fair substitute there. You know, I guess there along Route 20, that's kind of a northeast orientation, so to speak. So, but it should probably gonna have direct sun overhead right there. Yeah. Certainly. I can tell you that if we have problems with the plants, we're going to be putting something back because we want it to look good as much as you guys do. So,
Right.
yeah. So we're going to be in here with you for the long haul if there's a problem with the vegetation to be with it. But look, we want to get y'all comfortable with that fact up front. So if that's the adjustment that we would like to make, it's certainly, yeah, doable. I was trying to racking my brain and looking around right here at other ideas as well. I mean, the other thing is you could continue the oak leaves right there. You know, dropping one type of plant type out and having some consistency may or may not be a bad thing. But
yeah, Aaron, I agree with you actually. I think a line of oak leaf hydrangeas along that edge to replace the azaleas would be really stunning, and I think they would fill in the area really well. And I think they do really well because they're so resilient and they would flower. The issue is they're not evergreens. And so
they're not evergreen,
yeah.
right? Yeah.
So it is gonna look woody and wild, which maybe is not what we want.
Well,
and not what they
I
are.
think since
What
it's-
about a viburnum?
I think the evergreen would be preferable in terms of screening
Mhm.
at that site.
Yeah.
That location. So hence, I sort of feel better about the southern wax myrtle option.
We could do 50-50.
Is-
An evergreen and a oak
is
wood.
Yeah, is the southern wax myrtle, Aaron, similar to, I'm thinking, maybe I'm not using the right word, but autolucan, which is kind of also evergreen, deep green leaf, waxy leaf. It's a little different, but
I don't know.
probably
Say
it's
that.
probably not as native. I might be using the common name, but we have some autolucan. They're green. They have a long kind of leaf, but look, we could try the southern wax myrtle. The evergreen there is probably as much as important as the other pieces. So I think if I was going to pick that over oak leaf, I'd pick the myrtle just because it's evergreen in that location.
Okay.
Can I I want to make sure that I'm exhausting my resources of what would be a good replacement. Could I email the group next week about suggestions so that I can like do appropriate research, or do we want to make the decision this evening?
I think it would be good to make the decision in a meeting. And so if you feel like we need more time to look over our replacement, then we should probably do that at our next meeting. I think if we approve a site, at least that's sort of my sense of how we approve COAs. Is that if we're approving a COA, we've sort of done contingent upon some clear actionable items. But I think if something still involves discussion, we defer to another meeting, which we could have sooner. We could meet again sooner to do that. But that's where I want the decision to be made.
Okay, well, I guess, to be honest, the topic of the azalea, I know that they will replace it if they don't do well. So that is less on my priority list than the trees. So I don't know that I want to. I am passionate about slowing down the process for the sake of the azalea, but if everybody else feels strongly about it, I'm fine with that. I guess if I were to make a suggestion this evening, I would say alternate azaleas and southern wax myrtle. So that the azaleas get the shade of the southern wax myrtle and they're able to work together.
Okay. Will that, do you think, still provide adequate screening in the winter?
Yes.
Okay.
Half the plants.
Okay.
Yeah, and I would say keep all of the azaleas on the back line, at the back, how do we want to call that? At the,
These southern ones.
yeah. No, I'm
I
not
think we're
convinced
looking
by
at
this.
20.
I mean more, the southeastern side. Those will do great.
Oh, where they have more shade.
Yes.
That's that mixed planting along the border.
No, at the back. The back.
Between the residential property and the back of the
So,
store. Yeah, there you go.
Where they are, oh, where they're mixed in here.
yes,
This
those
is
do
already
great.
up by Burnham's.
Do you see it to be important to have evergreen shrubs on the medians at the car wash?
My only concern with the shrubs is really about screening for residences across the street from the site.
Yeah,
On the site, I'm not concerned about the plantings, I'm not concerned about the plantings on the site.
so Erin, can I ask you the objective of the plants on the medians on either side of the car wash? Like,
I think it's just, I think the key objective there is to give it some, one, just some aesthetics, and two, soften out the site, helping with that.
okay.
Okay, so it sounds like we're comfortable as a board with going back to the Route 20 side of things, mixing up the azaleas with southern wax myrtle, but doing both.
Alternating them.
In the sense of the board that feels comfortable with.
That would work.
Okay.
What about the dogwoods? In the parking lot islands. And Aaron, there are two trees on the ends of the islands at the car washes, which I couldn't figure out what they are.
I'm not looking at it, but I do think I recall there were dogwoods there. Is that what
Okay.
you were referring to?
Yeah, okay.
It's a, it,
It has a
if it's
different.
not dogwoods,
Yeah,
it
has a
should be a
different-
medium-sized flowering tree. Yeah, native if possible. Yep.
Aaron, I'd like to suggest a Kuza dogwood. For.
That-
As a,
That's fine.
okay. Just
That-
because it's.
They'll tend to be more, they'll tend to be more multi-stemmed like a service berry or a witch hazel than a single stem, but that's fine. It wouldn't change the vernacular or the maintenance.
Okay,
Yeah.
I think they do better in direct sunlight. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but that's, they do. There's a lot of them around Scottsville.
And that's at the car wash corners?
That's at, the corners of the convenience store.
Oh, okay, I see those.
What are the shrubs at the bottom of the sign? Have you selected those?
There's an oak leaf hydrangeas, I think.
Yeah, I believe it's indicated on the site plan there.
Okay.
I
Okay.
can't picture it right off, but I'm about ready to where I can pull it up, but I think a lot of that was evergreen there at the base of the sign where we had the
Yeah,
where we changed it over to brick.
that's hopefully if I do it at the base of the sign, yep.
I just want to look at the Canoy viburnum. I don't know about. Oh,
What about knockout roses for that island?
they're not native,
No.
which I like to make a big fuss about. Things
Okay.
being native, so.
We are a bee city, it's important that
That's
we
right.
remain native.
All right.
Um,
Okay. Well. Scratch Nandina then.
I think the last thing I'm focusing on, Aaron, is, those medians and just, making sure that those azaleas are in a place where they'll do well. Another option for that is using the oak leaves would be beautiful there. They will get big. But they also.
That's the problem with oak. Yeah,
Yeah.
the oak leaves are going to lose their leaves and they're going to get too tall on certain spots. So
They're also.
especially if they're really happy.
Yeah. Do you know how large the viburnums get? The canoys?
I did not on this specific varietal necessarily. But some of them can get quite large.
This says 4 feet
In 10 years.
in 10 years.
So they're slow growers.
Perfect.
So they are saying that the canoy can be in full sun and be fine. I'm sorry that I'm processing this as we're on. for those medians. I think the thing that I would personally ask is that you all look for a cultivar that prefers full sun. I guess I don't have a very strong opinion about it. I just want them to do well, just like you do.
But you can do. I was just texting Kelsey right now some notes, so can do.
Okay, great. That's all I have.
Okay.
Thanks.
So a review of site plan as submitted in terms of landscaping, it looks like the significant change we're asking for is along 20 to have the azaleas intermixed with 7 wax myrtle. And then is there another change to median or just to have them look for something that likes full sun?
A cultivar that prefers full sun.
The cultivar that prefers full sun in the medians. So that, but those, it sounds like the only 2 modifications on the site plan as submitted for landscaping.
Yes, and I will look at those trees.
Are we getting up on the oak tree?
The willow oak having a larger caliper.
No, the existing
Oh.
oak tree. And what is that? Is that a curb on that entrance coming off of James River Road from the west? Or is that just an asphalt turn lane? It changes to a single line there. Aaron?
I'm not looking. I don't have the set of plans at a scale I can zoom into that detail. At some point, the curb goes away because there's no curb on some of that larger road. So that might be what you're looking at there. But I'd have to pull it up on my computer and zoom in.
Because I think that tree is at the top. So there's no real ditch needed. It's kind of the ridge.
Yeah. I think that's the area where we've discussed on that tree. Ultimately, it's not going to be any of our decision there. It's going to be VDOT what they require, right? I think if that's the tree you're referring to. So
I think that's what we learned last time.
Right.
I think so that we're doing everything that we can to, I mean, I don't know what you all need to share with VDOT. I assume these plans are adequate. I think I'd like to request that oak tree is represented in these plans. So if there is any chance of saving it, then it is represented.
That's what we talked about, that if we approve
correct.
the request to do that and then VDOT has to supersede it, their right of way maintenance will override. But we're going to try to show the approval and ask them to keep it healthy.
And Kelsey said
Correct.
last
Correct.
time.
Yeah. More plainly said, it's going to be VDOT that has to ask to take it down. None of us will. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
So, but you're gonna lay the pavement right there, correct?
Here and
That's the pavement that's shown there, you're gonna lay it down. You're not gonna have VDOT lay that down.
That whatever gets constructed there, we will have to construct. But again, VDOT will be telling us what they are requiring us to see. So I hope that answers your question.
Yes, but that tree's been there longer than VDOT. So it should not, their maintenance program shouldn't change to involve taking that tree down. So I agree with Aaron. I think we should mark it up to be saved so that VDOT understands that, and your subcontractor understands that preservation of that tree is
It's a priority.
what the board would like.
show the and show the preservation fencing on it in the same way to the it's
To
a
the
tight
extent possible.
squeeze, but to the
Right.
extent possible.
Yeah, you won't be able to fence.
Aaron, what we're asking is that you represent it on the site plan
As protected.
as protected.
Understood. Yes.
Got it. Okay, so a review now of the biddings. I think I've added a couple things here. So replacing azalea with southern wax myrtle along 20, interspersing those. Something that can stand full sun well in median plantings. Moving the large deciduous tree caliper up to 3.5 feet, which I missed the last time.
Inches, yeah.
Inches. Okay, 3.5 inches. And then representing, we're talking about the oak. Yeah, representing oak, tree and plants, and with a preservation fence on the site so that VDOT and contractors know that it should be preserved at all costs. Okay, double note taking, good, double bookkeeping. Okay. Any other comments on the site plan? For landscape? Matt, as we go, how do you want us to approve, do we want to approve everything in one batch, or do we want to approve it in bits? What makes?
If it helps you for housekeeping to those 4 items, you can straw poll that as you go. You will have 2 votes on the approval, the COA and the sign permit.
Okay, so then let's take the sign's not part of the. So
It's
the
a
sign is
separate
separate.
application.
Right. Now let's delay the sign and let's just work through the things that are the site plan, so we can vote on that as one package.
But we feel good about landscaping now?
I'm feeling, okay. I'm feeling, yes. Oh, this will also all be pending a site review with Aaron on site. We'll add that in when we get to that. Okay, so now let's move to parking lot lights. The last time we comment to make sure shields, light shields are added on the parking lot lights. I don't see a rendering of the shields in this packet, I don't think, unless it's on sheet 3. There's a wall trim detail, but I don't think that's a light shield. So I guess I'm asking you just to speak to shielding on the parking lot lights, Aaron.
I'm trying to understand your question. Everything is shown with down lighting, and what is it you're looking for? Maybe I'm sorry to be slow on this.
That's okay, that's okay. Yeah, so on the parking lot lights, we requested that shielding be added so that all the light is directed downward to preserve our dark skies in town. And as part of our lighting.
Are they not shown? The set that I saw had all down lighting with no like exposed bulbs, nothing going up, nothing going above the horizontal plane, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a different set y'all are looking at.
Oh, no, it is. It is just very, very tiny on the document I printed out. Matt has blown it up so that we can see it more clearly. We have it here.
Which page is that?
It looks like page
5.
Page 5.
And yes,
So that's.
It should all meet that dark sky ordinance type of stuff. Yeah, and we're big supporters of that right along with you guys. So
Okay.
hopefully you see the detail that is there. Everybody's learning about dark skies from Flagstaff, right? Otherwise they can't run their telescopes. So yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
That's right.
That's right.
Yeah. Observatory Hill.
Yeah. Okay.
That's right. That's right.
Matt, can you slide
So
to the-
yeah, if you need it, yeah, if you need a different cut sheet or something that helps you feel more comfortable, we can put that on the list and provide it afterwards. But it should be there. We hope it's there.
Yeah.
We intended it for it to be there.
Yeah, thank you. No, it's here. So yeah, we're gonna sort of move through this like we moved to the last one. Are there any other comments or concerns related to light shielding?
That's fine with me.
Okay. And then dumpster enclosure, which is on page 8, sheet 8 of 11. Put a rendering here of what that will look like, along with a color palette. Looks like a wood, is it a wood enclosure? Is it a wood enclosure? I'm assuming so.
It is, and that's that's one that we have put in place before. So it'll use the same kind of color palette and would be wood enclosed. So it is So you're not looking at any dumpsters.
Yeah.
And then of course landscaping coordinated with it. Yep.
Yeah. Any other comments? The dumpster enclosure. It's a dumpster. It's an enclosure.
Yeah. Anybody feel the need to make the outbuildings a different color than the main building? And maybe a darker tan or green, so that they became, so that the creamy building would be the main building and everything else would be secondary and the colors would reflect that.
I think the darker color on the other building, the ancillary building is probably a good idea. For one reason, it is a dumpster and it's in a dumpster enclosure. And so it's going to take some wear and tear. That perhaps a darker color could help kind of, that's just one thought. And because it's also not my favorite color in the world, but I think that we could do the loggia in the dumpster enclosure and that would look fine. What do you think?
Yes.
So, they have on page 6, they have colonial white, cottage cream, and loggia for the building. And then for the dumpster, they have cottage cream and loggia. So they are going with the 2 darker colors.
This drawing is on, the inside panels are the brown
Uh-huh.
and the trim is cream.
It just doesn't show up to look.
Oh, boy, it looks the same color.
So it would be darker.
Oh, okay. It's just not in the picture.
Yeah, it doesn't.
That did not come across.
Well, the trim is black, right?
Yeah, the trim will still be right.
But I think it's still, Aaron, correct me if I'm wrong in this, but are you using the cottage cream as a highlight? Did that highlight on the dumpster structure and the loggia on the panels?
I believe so. And I think the intent was to keep it in the same color palette family. So if we need to step it down a notch or 2 within that same vein, it's easy to do.
That's what's indicated.
Painted all loggia.
I
Sorry,
think so too.
what's indicated in your drawing is that the loggia will be the panels on the dumpster enclosure and the main building of the car wash. So it just doesn't look that way in the picture, but I will take it at the word that is what it will look like, which means they will be darker in color.
Yes, and that's the intent here. I think the photo that was used was from Ruckville, where everything was all like right together, and it was desirous for everything to be perfectly uniform, so to speak. So, yeah.
Okay.
I'm fine with that.
I kind of like it all loggia.
The
I think the
dumpster enclosure?
two colors are like attract your eye.
It doesn't need trim work.
Right.
Yeah, I agree with John on that. In terms of the dumpster enclosure, it's not something that you want to try to highlight by having a contrasting trim. And so that the darker loggia color, both on the panels and the trim, might be preferable.
Yeah, that works for us. That's easier to maintain too.
Yeah. And let's go for it. All loggia on the dumpster enclosure.
Rhymes.
It does. All loggia on the closure.
Too bad.
It was bound to happen.
Well, it happens more and more to me every day.
Anytime someone says loggia.
Okay. All right, so that takes care of our checklist for the site plan. So are we ready to move forward with a motion to approve the site plan as submitted with the additional comments we made this evening?
What happened to the sidewalk with planning commission was talking about. Did that not, did it not get incorporated?
Some sidewalk and trail will come back at final site plan. Planning commission talked about that on Monday. And our site plan ordinance has a shall for both internal improvements and connections to the neighboring parcels. The preliminary site plan is deficient in that way. So they know they need to put in
Oh, okay,
a degree of sidewalk and trails. Planning commission is going to continue to work on that.
so we could, right.
Yeah, agreed. And to add to that, I think we've even shifted some of the vacuums back in anticipation of that. So yes.
All right. Thank you.
Good. So we're not going to lose any of our plants when a sidewalk is.
So I move that we approve the site plan with regard to the landscaping with modifications as cited, with the lighting as described, and with the paint colors for the main building and the dumpster enclosure as cited.
Thank you.
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Blue.
You say it.
I'm as cited, I thought we changed it to all.
As cited by the modifications that were
Okay,
cited.
okay.
That's what I meant by that.
And did we mention your further input? Okay,
Would that be included in as cited?
Modification.
Okay. all right, bye.
And opposed? Thank you. Okay. So that's the site plan, and Aaron will take a walk up there to make sure the trees are tagged, and they're lined up the way they need to be, and then that will be ready to go. Okay, so the next piece is
Thank
the sign.
Fine.
Okay, so for the sign, the last time, the action items from our discussion last time was to decrease the size to meet our size specifications in town and for the entrance corridor. We requested a brick base to be consistent with the other commercial signage on that corner, external lighting on the sign, and some recognition of Scottsville, that the market is here and not somewhere else. And so on the site for the sign as submitted, we have our brick base, which is good. There's also a Scottsville logo. It appears we have two options for placement of said logo. Below the tiger wash or above. And external lighting. Will there be a light, Aaron? This is a question for you. Is there a light shining on the sign?
Yeah, this is still uplit from the ground as before, so all that is remain consistent.
Like the guidance.
Got it. Okay.
I thought this was responsive. It's still too big.
Yeah,
So my impression is that it's an improvement and a good looking sign, but the board can't approve it because it's still too big.
So we can approve.
can I
anything
ask,
but the
is it
size.
bifacial? Aaron, is it the same on both sides?
I believe so. Yes.
Well, I personally think that the welcome to the market at Scottsville placed at the top of the sign is preferable to the base.
Mhm.
But that's just my opinion.
That was also my preference upon looking at the two options.
Yeah.
I think having it on top looks nice. Also keep in mind that this is like our second welcome sign to town. So I think it does fit nicely on top and serves that purpose.
So, my ordinance is pretty complex. So is the entrance corridor sign ordinance apply here, or does Scottsville have its own separate one? Or
your entrance corridor rules apply. There's a table of sign standards in chapter 4, and I'm sorry for the cross citation.
No, that's okay.
So the table to use is this one.
417.
Yes. So commercial signs outside of the historic district. So that's where we are, not in the core downtown area, but outside. This is a freestanding sign, 32 square foot maximum area. This is too big.
Okay. Now, so I was reading that they could have a 50% area for the gas. The part that talks about the price of the gas could be 50% of the allowable sign, which would be 16 square feet. Somewhere. So I don't know if the Tiger Wash is a separate business. And does that, is there some way we can dice this up so that we can make it work? Because 32 square feet is quite small.
It's pretty small, especially for the multiple purposes that this has to serve of the critical information of gas prices.
Right.
The name of the multiple businesses and the solution. Not that I saw. So the procedure that made sense to me was for the board to interpret this ordinance and deny the sign permit. All of this board's decisions are appealable to town council. And so if the message from this board were that everything about the design is appealing except that it's too large, town council could interpret that on appeal.
Okay.
And provide an answer to this applicant in 2 weeks.
Well, John, I see where you're going. I mean, my personal preference that I'd like to see the Tiger Wash sign separated from this, just because it's so busy.
Well, I like that it's integrated and it's all in one box. So I was trying to reinterpret it to allow this to happen, maybe like a 5 foot tall sign.
I see.
By 8 or something like that, but where we could interpret each section of the sign as kind of a separate.
Separate entity.
If it were very slightly smaller, it would almost be allowable as 2 signs.
There's a lot going on there, but I mean, it's multiple functions, multiple businesses, so it's kind of hard to avoid. I mean, across the street, a bank is a bank, a Food Lion is a grocery store, but here you've got the market, the car wash, the gas station. It's kind of hard. It has to.
Well, maybe the Tiger Wash goes, they have another sign right at the actual entrance to the property. I think I saw that on the site plan. Maybe we could take the Tiger Wash off of this one and put it over there.
That's kind of what I was thinking, but I don't know whether or not you lose, the visibility of what you've got to offer on site to the heavy traffic, which is coming down 20. I mean, from a commercial standpoint, from their standpoint. I mean, from an aesthetic standpoint, to me, I would like that better, because I just think that this is a lot, especially when you come up that hill and you're getting ready to go down. It's a lot to look at and to take in.
Right.
And while I like the brick, and I think that's a good idea, it almost makes it
Visually more.
active than, a little more intense, but they have a lot of things to communicate, so. And traffic will be slowing down as they make that right from 20 to go onto James River Road and go into the property. So I guess
I know, and it's a little, I mean, that intersection is fairly dangerous, right? Because you're going to start going downhill and people are turning, and this sign is past where you have to make all the decisions. So if people are reading the sign and trying to figure out the traffic at the same time, I mean,
Yeah.
that's just part of life.
it is, and a lot of these people are, repeat customers every day. This is how they drive and where they drive, and so they'll know.
Right. So the Tiger Wash doesn't seem to me, it could relocate because people, wash my car.
Yeah.
What are their options? They're going to go
Wonder
here.
what Aaron thinks about that. Aaron?
we have found that this layout of the sign has been working really well in all of our other locations. You notice, I mean, aside from the gas pricing, you don't say we're marketing the market so that people know that there's food, and there's also the wash. So the ancillary kind of tie-ins that differentiate this site for us. If we are comfortable, if you guys are with the aesthetics and all of the sign, to try and see if there's a town council's willing to essentially give the variance on the size, because it is kind of like two businesses, one sign. And we worked really hard to try and make it less busy. It's funny, the conversation you all are having, we've had for like 2 or 3 straight hours straight as we've kind of worked through this, the marketing department and everything on it. So,
Right, I
Yeah.
don't think it's a game changer.
Yeah, we went through a lot of iterations to try and figure out also the Scottsville piece, because that was, when y'all made that request, that was also important to us because we liked it. But that's why we say welcome to the market at, because y'all already say welcome to Scottsville. So we really tried to be as thoughtful as we could with it. I know Gordon is very sensitive to being able to try and keep the Tiger Wash there, as we went through all the iterations of try to lay this out
Something like that.
and everything. So yeah, so understood. We will take your recommendations for sure in terms of process and approvability, but this is through all of our iterations, our preferred request and
Right,
preference,
right.
if there's any way to think about it. Yeah. So I hope I'm answering your question.
Yeah, no, that's what I expected to hear, because I understand that from a marketing and a branding standpoint. I was just speaking to, aesthetically and lots of information contained in one sign. Just from the standpoint of being a driver and taking it all in. It's kind of a lot. And so that's what I was reacting to. But again, we can't really pass on it one way or the other, other than to deny it, given it's exceeding the size. So.
Yeah, I'm also trying to just get a sense,
Yeah.
this sign is 10 feet tall.
That's as tall as this room.
Yeah. And
That's including the brick base.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's pretty tall. I mean, I'm wondering, I guess I'm wondering, do we need the brick base?
Well, now,
And I mean, I know we're trying to.
You will, because the plants will cover up the Tiger Wash.
Right.
I was just gonna say, the plants are gonna cover up the brick.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, I mean, you could do a dark aluminum, or maybe.
Well, I guess I'm just saying the height, but you want to get it off the ground. You want to get the bottom of the sign off the ground. So the brick base makes sense to do that. It's a very tall sign.
I think you do it the sight line, and I don't think in person it's as tall as you feel like it is. And you'll see that we brought it down in the 2 versions to make sure that it stayed at that same height while still putting the welcome piece on the top. So we had to keep it all consistent with that.
And how far back from the road is this thing set?
Not very far.
We're also trying to get a sense of its relationship to the corner, because size, matters at distance. So how far in from 20 are we?
It is.
I can tell. I can't tell on this map.
7 or 8, maybe 10.
That's.
From 20 or from James River Road?
From 20, the corner, so diagonally, I guess I'm trying to get that sense. Like, if you're coming around the corner, how far is the sign from my car when I'm at the intersection?
They can't create a sightline issue.
Right.
I'm sure.
Well, I'm not worried about the sightline issue. I'm just thinking to myself, the size of the sign versus depth.
Just how that mass feels when it's beside you.
And it might be a moot point. I mean, I think what we've got in front of us is we should reject the sign on size. I think that's what's in front of us. And then council can decide what they want to do in terms of allowing a variance or allowing it to go through anywhere. But I think our task is to follow our guidelines for size and pass forward all our recommendations for the design of the sign. I think we've got a consensus that the wording on top is good and the overall layout of the sign is appropriate. But I think,
So that's like a 7-foot by 6-foot door, right? Imagine that as a sign, it's still quite large.
quite large.
Yeah.
Well, but we're inside. It's so different to look at something, as you well know, inside versus outside. I mean,
Is the mass of this thing similar to the bank pedestal sign? That's below you when you drive by it, but that one is on a column and then did have a legally sized 4x8 panel on top of it. But it's on a pedestal, so the sort of space filled by the thing.
Yeah.
But as you drive along the road, it's sort of below you.
Yes.
frankly, I think this will look smaller than 10 by 10 because of all the material that is there. You know, I mean, I think that will tend to make it look smaller than the truest sign with one word, big blue background. So I don't know, I just think
Well, I think what's in front of us though is, I think
we have to.
we vote to reject the permit for the sign simply based on the size.
Exceeds the size.
May I ask a question? That's just from past things. That is, the shopping center, although you have a chart, the shopping center, I believe some variances were made from the signs on the building, like we, as a pedestrian, as opposed to drive by. Isn't that still available as an exception or a reasoning for allowing some differences?
Yes, the reason for there's a different rule set for the attached wall signs on the
Yes.
buildings. This is a freestanding sign, you can only need it so big. So
In other words, more or less, the precedent has been established as two sets of rules at the shopping center, is what I'm saying.
no, it's a different standard for attaching to a building than it is for something freestanding. on.
Just a question.
Yeah, and this is entrance corridor, so it has its own special rules.
So I think I would, yeah, okay.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, so I think we can communicate, correct me if I'm wrong, the consensus is the overall design here is good. We like the brick base, we like the welcome to the market in Scottsville, that sounds appropriate, and placing it on top looks nice. So I think that's what we like. But we will still need to go through voting to make a motion on this. Rejecting it on the grounds of it being too large.
There's other violations. You're only supposed to have 3 colors maximum. And 3 different kinds of type maximum. So I move to reject it for size and because it violates those, and because it violates the typeface ordinance and the color ordinance.
How many? 3?
3.
Where's that?
And it says black
So I can see.
black and white is a color and typeface.
Are you in the entrance corridor?
Yeah.
Ordinance? Where are we?
Let's see.
That's tight. That's tough to deal with when you have multiple businesses with multiple logos.
That's why
Be
I'm trying-
limited to 3 separate.
right.
You
That's what,
count black and white. Yeah, it's impossible.
yeah, but it's the rules. That's why I'm trying to find a way around it.
No, understood. So it would need to go to town council for a quote variance approval, just like the size would, due to the limitations on color.
Where is that, John? I did not know that. If I were advising someone not to
Well,
look
it
on.
says it on the fuel pump canopy signs on page 16 of the entrance corridor sign guideline.
There's pictures.
Entrance corridor sign guidelines from Albemarle County.
That's not our ordinance, sir.
That's not us.
No, they've made theirs harsher.
Than
since-
yours. Well,
Yes.
that's why I was asking which one is yours?
Okay. No, you want, I'll send it to you. It's
Okay.
We want, yes, ours and our guidelines to fit this corridor. So there is no color issue
Okay.
in terms of limits. Although I think we would want fewer colors, but usually that's not an issue because it's usually one side per business, and here we have a color. So would you like to modify your
My
motion?
motion is just to deny approval because it violates the size.
Second.
All in favor
Aye.
and opposed? All right, thank you all.
Thank you.
So,
That's,
yeah.
that's interesting to know.
So help me, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, that's, yeah,
I'll print you off some different stuff at the end of the meeting.
okay.
But that explains some of the trouble that,
When I was like,
Wawa and
like,
Sheets
where's
have
my
gone through.
words? It's like,
Yeah.
I read this the other day.
Yeah.
Where's the- Okay.
All right.
No worries.
All right, Aaron, well, thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you all.
Thank you for your work on this. I appreciate your collaboration.
Yeah, thank you, Erin.
Absolutely. Could I request that we get a copy of those minutes tomorrow so we can get right to work to the site plan pieces so that we're timely on that for you all?
We'll share notes.
I know
around.
Erin's going to go back out there herself, but yeah, that's great.
I'll share notes around and.
Thank you.
Town council also needs this properly so they can pick it up. Thank you,
Fantastic.
sir.
I hope you all have a great evening. Thank you so much.
You too.
Thank you.
Hi.
All right, so that leads us into new business. There are no new applications this evening. Which leads us into number 6, repair, maintenance, and enforcement issues. Consultation with any property owners in attendance.
Good evening, sir. You haven't come around that.
Okay, none in attendance. Complaint on unpermitted work at 280 Valley Street and 155 West Main Street. What is the nature of the complaint?
Thank you. A neighbor sent this over, looking at recent activity of this board and concerned about our consistency on permitting. This painting job at the tavern, done last year, I do believe without appearing to this body, and it was a change in color from what they had before. And likewise, down the block next to it, this is a new business that has been open for long enough that any kind of temporary grand opening signs have expired. And this sign is not one that was permitted either.
Right.
It's been a while, so I want to check in as I proceed with the enforcement matter of this was done without consultation with our board, but it is work that should have been permitted. That's a step you're comfortable with me taking?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll do that.
I guess we knew about the tavern sooner.
Mhm.
Probably should have acted sooner. So we acted sooner on others.
Can you remind me what the tavern was?
And can you tell me that it did come forward with the COA? It did not.
It did not.
No, the work was done and then, yes, that's what I thought.
Well, the base of the building was unpainted. Yeah, it was just unpainted. And then,
And the concrete was flaking, right?
yes.
Google Maps has the older.
Okay.
No,
Oh, wow. The painted steps. They're gonna regret that.
So their action for next month would likely be to request retroactive approval for what's done here,
Mhm.
and the board could grant that or order changes,
That's correct.
similar to the Methodist church fence
Yep.
issue that we had.
Yeah.
Okay.
Here's the question though, like if we order changes to take it back to what it was, how would they strip it? I guess I'm thinking about, depending on what we recommend or order,
Well,
what kind of work would,
as we know with retroactive COAs, it is challenging to get work undone.
Right.
That has been done. And so I think if we felt compelled to require work, we would have to figure out what the reasonable move
Right.
forward should be, which, as you can tell, might be limited, but that is what happens when we have a retroactive COA.
right,
So, but I think it is our process to contact people who have done work out of order and to get COA for it. And with the new flower shop, I was also the impression that they had a temporary sign, that they were going to get a more permanent sign,
right,
and that they were going to be coming to us with an application for that more permanent sign once they were established. So I feel like it would also be appropriate to reach out and say, is this your permanent sign? Are you going to make a permanent sign? And if you are, this would probably be the time to do it.
I think that's how we'll work that there.
I think that's how we communicate with the flower shop,
Mhm.
because we did have a good authority that they were going to make a permanent sign.
I think he came here once in background discussion
Mhm.
and never actually applied.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so we
but
should
the,
just ask him to make a sign.
but the business is licensed and in good standing, and
Yep.
it's time to do that.
Yep, okay, let's do that.
We'll look for the next month.
Great.
On the poor condition outreach, most of the certified mail has confirmed delivery.
Good.
A couple of those have bounced, bad addresses or refusal to sign for them. So I'll follow up on that with other means,
Okay.
and get them here. Trying to think. When we approved the painting work at 330 Valley Street, Carmel Greer mentioned also just fixing the broken window. She's also got some stabilization work underway with our COA on 474 Valley. I don't think I've spoken with any of the other poor condition property owners about doing work. So you should expect them to see them on their COAs next month.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody has driven up Hardware Road to see the property that is across from the
you can see it now.
Century Lane.
Yeah, that's a big
It's been
change.
practically clear cut.
The overgrown property?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not overrunning.
So I don't know what the status is with regard to the trust and the sale, et cetera, but clearly somebody is doing a lot of work there.
Mr. Holt, sorry to interrupt. Did you sell that one?
I did not sell it, but it did sell, yeah. a while
Okay.
back.
Okay.
It did, yes.
Then I might have sent the mail to the wrong party. I'll check that.
Although that, I don't know if you need a letter about that one. Yeah, it's always good to communicate that, welcome to the historic
Welcome to the
district.
neighborhood.
Yeah, maybe that's the letter we sent. Welcome to the historic district. Give us a call.
We have a lot to talk about.
Congratulations.
Gonna miss that one on the other.
There's a cool well in the kitchen.
In honor of Tyler, I'd like to bring up the Dollar General landscape thing.
Which did not happen this year.
No.
So they have the fall to do that work.
That, you're right, and that went by. That was an approved action that we ordered done in that, like, growing season, right? They needed to replace plantings in the fall and winter, and now it is spring and not done. Yeah, and good comparison to what the commitments made at Tiger Fields Market. That is also, a well-funded business, which is doing landscaping. We're going to approve a landscaping plan, and those plants need to stay there. And when they, die, they need to be replaced. What happened at Dollar General was we approved a landscaping plan. That plan doesn't exist there anymore, and they need to restore it.
Oh, I see.
And they've been pretty negligent in doing that. And we've tried several times with different store managers and property management firms to get that done. And it didn't follow through hasn't been.
I mean, it does feel like, and I was driving by the Dollar General today, having the same thought. Like, this might also be like worthwhile us considering formal legal action. Or,
We're serious.
yeah, negligence in doing it, and they certainly have the capacity to do it.
Absolutely.
So I don't know why they haven't.
I have seen them in other parts of the state,
Mhm,
beautifully maintained.
mhm.
Mhm.
So I would like to raise that in honor of Tyler Vance's board's consideration.
But let's get that at work session as well with our attorney.
Okay.
Sometimes he spends better hours than I do.
And then my only sort of follow up on the maintenance and enforcement issues is where we would the inventory updated to a OneDrive file.
Oh. I haven't done that.
Okay. Let's check.
I'll think of that. Because we've got a couple of those files in two places. So check on the shared access.
Is there, sorry to jump back to our previous discussion, is there any movement on the dollhouse with the court proceedings?
So we're in that stopwatch period now, where it's served and the order is to appear and get the COA. And if there's contempt of that, we initiate that and
Okay,
go to court in 2 more months.
okay, so their deadline is 2 months. Yeah,
Okay.
okay,
Because Matt wanted to have sort of a letter written and delivered
yeah,
in a more specific and clear way,
right,
so that we have a better standing. And so at that point, we should probably sort of maybe have that conversation we had again, look at the properties, what do we want to move on, is this still the one?
Mhm.
And do that.
Mhm.
And so we'll do that in 2 months' time.
Yep.
Okay.
I did have a contractor looking at the train depot.
Mhm.
They haven't delivered that pricing estimate to me yet,
Mhm.
but local carpenter, very keen to take on that job,
Okay.
enthusiastic about it. So
Good.
I hope that'll be good pricing.
And we have, for our budget discussion, we've got money until for this year to do that without this extra appropriation or anything, right? But, okay, good.
May I ask how much, I know that the grant was something on the order of 4 to 5,000.
The grant was 5,000.
5,
Mhm.
okay, so. But what can be done for $5,000? I'm just kind of curious.
I don't know.
Okay.
And
So you're getting a bid from a carpenter. who's
I'll find
interested in
out
this
and
work. Okay,
I'll find out. Construction work has cost more than I thought it would for the past couple of years. So if we have to chew on some sticker shock with town council, we can do that.
Okay, great. And I'm also gonna bring up the town council, this is related to the depot. James River Association has opened their first river center in Virginia. Basically, I forget the other organization they're working with, but they take these old locations on the river and they work with another partner to turn it into an educational center. for the river. And given the location of that depot, and given our work along the riverfront, starting with our easement, the wetlands, working on improving the boat launch in terms of the waterfront, shoring up the bank, it makes sort of, I think, natural sense to continue moving east. And if we're interested in saving this building and doing something interesting with it, and building on a relationship with CSX that we currently have, this might be an interesting thing to cultivate. So I'm going to bring that to town council
that's a
and work session,
fantastic idea.
just to let them know that this is a thing that is happening, and that if we wanted to pursue this more actively with our next round of CSX conversations, this is one, I feel it would be worth exploring.
It would, I think it would be worth looking into precedents throughout the James too, of how successful they've been in their education efforts and how long they've been going. Because there's one in one I can think of in Richmond that's been going since I was a kid
Mhm.
and is still very successful, and that might be helpful.
Mhm.
But maybe that's not necessary if JRA and another partner is building on that.
But I think, yeah, they do have precedent for that, and this sounds like a very special kind of new thing they're trying to do,
That's
so.
great.
Yeah.
It's really exciting.
Yeah.
Well, I think the other thing that's so cool about that area is that like the Tutwiler building, which was the original boat
Mhm.
house, you know, that's where the canal boats, et cetera, were housed, and then across from that, the dollhouse was like a little general store. I mean, we're really talking about the original crux of the town.
Mhm.
So, of course, the train depot came a lot later, but I mean, again, that was the sort of main axis.
Mhm.
So it would be wonderful if there could be a kind of sequencing that was designed from a preservation standpoint there.
Mhm. Yeah.
That's so interesting. It's called Main Street, and we do more
Yeah.
on Valley Street now, but
Yeah.
then the, relation to the river was more important, and Main
Absolutely.
Street is Main Street.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah. And so I think with this sort of thing, I think the more organizations you can get looped into it,
Mhm.
the more likely you're to have success with it. So if there is a museum connection, for example, or something, the more sort of hand you can get on, I think the better.
Canal Basin
Canal
Square.
Basin Square goes down the way, so there's, yeah.
Team left.
Yeah. So I wanted to just throw that out there so that you knew about it.
Right.
So you could even look it up yourself. Okay, a couple information items, just two. One is, did we ever, and I'm asking this with sincerity for clarity, the applicant was going to build the home up on Poplar Spring Road. Did this board ever hear what happened to them, or their plans?
Was that the one that we approved?
Yeah, then
and
they-
then
yeah, yeah.
sold?
They built a house in Buckingham
Yeah,
County.
I met the guy the other day, came up and said hello, and he's like, do you remember me? It's like, no.
Maybe.
Yeah, and he told me that was the deal, and I was like, well, thank you for ending that story for me. I was like, I didn't know where you went, or what happened, or
Yeah.
why. They've got 12 acres on the river, and I was like, get it. So anyway, I just wanted to share that with people in case you
Yeah.
didn't know, just to kind of like, that's how the story is.
Okay.
So,
I will say that the
I'm saying it
house,
mostly for myself, but thanks for listening.
the house that he built doesn't look anything like what we approved.
Yeah.
Work, so.
There you go. The other thing, Matt, this is a follow-up question for you. We had discussed at town council a historic marker near the tavern on the James.
Yes.
There was a property, a historic black business in that location. And we were going to bring before this board a plan for a potential marker on the site, but I don't know where we are with that.
I confirmed the marker text with Hillary Rarely, who was doing the historical research on it. So that's set.
Okay.
I will need to bring you a landscaping plan for that, because I don't just want to put it in the sidewalk. I would like it to have a bench and some landscaping and some pavers and a spot for respect and marking where that building used to be. I think it's really interesting, the kind of gaps in our downtown where notable buildings once stood, and that is one.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds like a great public art project.
Right, more than just a sign in the sidewalk.
Yeah.
But again, construction gets to be a lot more expensive than I thought it would be. So I'm still sort of sketching that. Time's a wasting. I would love to do a Juneteenth dedication of that. I don't know if I'll hit that,
Yeah.
but I might have a proposal for you at the June meeting.
Okay.
Can I ask, I feel like there are lots of buildings that probably should be marked in the same way. And so why are we choosing this one specifically?
Because of its location on town-owned property, so coordinating it is a little bit easier. The historical significance of it as the only Black woman-owned business during the Jim Crow era feels a special note. However, I think like the remains of the Travelers Rest Hotel are really cool. The building where the Methodist Church parking lot is was really cool looking. filling some of that in with other, pictures could be a really fun walking tour down the road.
Yeah, it sounds like this should be the start of an intentional project is the town.
The photos that I see of the Travelers Rest Hotel, the tallest building downtown at the main intersection, and the way that it
It was
like
huge.
Yes, it was.
thrusts out with its like
That
points and
was
everything.
pretty good gravel for it. but-
Yeah, it was, I know, but it was a huge building.
Yeah, it's a very different town.
Okay. Thank you, and thank you all for your time and consideration with this site plan. This is a sensitive part of town, and I really appreciate everyone's conscientiousness and attention to it. And I think we've got a good plan under our belt, so thank you. Thank you. Anything else to come before the board this evening?
I move that we adjourn.
All in favor?
Thank you, Ward.
We are. Thank you.
And I'll endeavor to read the correct order.